Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Thank you for your support. Enjoy the video.
Hey there, Rulers. DMO73 here, bringing you the deck profile for the Faria 5 Heroes list that you saw me play earlier this week. Absolutely a blast to play this deck. Definitely recommend it. The whole concept of using the Faria J-Ruler Beats style, you can kind of build around it in a bunch of different ways. I decided to go very thematic with the 5 heroes because, for reasons I'll talk about, you can technically play every 5 hero except for Shakti off of this sword base without needing a Lars on the board at all. And we'll get to kind of why that is. So obviously Faria is our ruler for usual stuff, and then on her backside she's this 10/10 God's Arts to gain +4/+4, gets you a stranger on enter, which is awesome, which is why you'll see we don't usually do her mode to get strangers to hand, because we want the most strangers possible for her triggers to put them straight into the field. And then stone base wise, we're playing 4 Light Vapors, 3 Ataractia's Memoria, 2 Gusting Skies, and 1 Deepwood. I could see this changing a little bit to have more of a green base. After playing it a little bit, the green felt a little bit more necessary, so maybe I would bump it up to less so than the blue. So maybe I'd bump it up to like 3 Gusting Skies, or maybe 4 Gusting Skies, 2 Ataractia's Memoria, just so you have a little bit more balanced stone base, but that's something you can consider. Real quick to go into the strangers, we're playing 2 Antarite, because sometimes, especially if you're doing Awakening of the Winged Lord with a Charlotte on the board, if you hit an Excalibur, sometimes you can just tap your opponent's whole board down. Also, if you are going to bring one back to her hand, like with Faria's God Art, this one is very, very nice to just suddenly be like, oops, the game's over, tap you down during your end phase, swing through for lethal. Artemis, Goddess of the Hunt. This one is an amazing one to flip into play off of Faria, because suddenly you have this extra body on board, which is great, and you can start giving stuff barrier, pumping your guys up, doing spot removal, all kinds of things that you can use pretty well with your limited will, because you're usually flipping Faria pretty early. Guardian of Outland, a great card to be able to flip into Faria as well, because you aren't really missing your stone call for the turn, and it helps you kind of keep the pressure going up. Ushua, classic card to be able to flip into play. Unfortunately, if it's in hand, you're kind of out of luck, but that's why we're primarily putting them into play, so that you can just like burn a guy out of the board and have this big body come alongside your Faria, which is awesome. And then lastly, the 2 copies of Twin Swords, pretty staple, again, mostly to try to help get stuff out of the way so Faria can finish the game off. Going into the main deck, we're playing 4 copies of Charlotte. We want to hit her as most as possible, get multiple copies of her as possible to make our Faria just gigantic and get all these different triggers. 3 copies of Pierre, because he's an excellent 1-drop right now, and he also sets up Faria really nicely. 2 copies of Shakti, because we're playing a lot of like fetch sword arts, and so if we can get her into play pretty easily with off of a Alice's Castling or something like that, suddenly your Awakenings of the Sacred Queen, your Awakening of the Winged Lord, your Crystallizations, just a lot of stuff suddenly become really, really good. Last Secret Sword, just as an extra kind of push for lethal. Sometimes your Faria can't quite get you there, but whatever Shakti you have on board, you're just like, well, Faria's done her job, let's finish the game off and double it up and deal 2 grand. Couple copies of Wings of the Archangel and 4 copies of Excalibur. We don't want Wings of the Archangel too much, because we can get it in a lot of different ways, and we don't have the ability to play strangers off of it. So it's helpful for God Arts, it's helpful for Sword Arts, but other than that, it's not really doing much other than giving her flying. So, and Faria can do a lot even without flying. 4 copies of Lars, just to be able to have this body, as well as being able to set up all your other little kind of locks, essentially. The idea being, if you have a Lars and you have a Faria, you kind of are at a really good spot, even against flyers, because like Faria can block the first one, prevents the damage to her, she's got barrier. Lars prevents the first damage to himself. Like, your guys just become a lot more sticky when you're getting into like force traits and things like that, which is really nice. 3 copies of Atlas's Castling. A lot of our guys are 2-drops, including Charlotte, like I said, Shakti, Vala. Crazy things you could do with this spell, and it also just helps keep cycling the deck. 2 copies of Light of the Sacred Spirit, to be able to help dig you into more 5 heroes, as well as being able to spot remove things that are in your way. Same thing for Crystallization. It's all about the spot removal. 3 copies of Faria, the Virtuous Vampire. We can play her for 1 green, and if we have a Lars on the board, we can technically play her for 1 white. So really, really strong card, and just Faria in general is just a really, really powerful card. We don't really have any ways to deal the minus outside of discarding our Shakti or Last Secret Sword, but we do have green cards, and so that's what you're probably going to be discarding, if anything. But also, she's just a decent body by herself. 3 copies of Vala, excellent card to be able to use off of the idea of, like, with Alice's castling. So like they're about to try to kill something, you Alice's castling it out of the way, turn it into a Vala, steal one of their guys. Tempo swings like that. 2 copies of Aura of the Sacred Sword. I could definitely see this going down to 1. You make some room for some other stuff, like an additional copy of Crystallization or Light of the Sacred Spirit, just to be able to give all your entities Barrier and Cycles a card. The other nice thing is if you have Shakti on the board, and you're flipped, suddenly you can cast this for free and draw 2 cards, which is really, really cool. And then lastly, 3 copies of the Awakening of the Winged Lord and 2 copies of Awakening of the Sacred Queen. This is the kind of big combo stuff. If Shakti's on board, suddenly this is get 2 things. If Sacred Queen's on board, suddenly this is get 2 different regalia. And it just combos off there and gets really, really crazy, really, really fast. So especially since pretty much every 5 hero except for Lars is a 2-drop. So you can get all of those, or you can get your regalia. Lots of cool things that you can do. But that is the deck. Hope you guys liked it. It's a ton of fun to play. Like I said, definitely recommend trying it out. There's lots of different takes that you can make with this Faria, Charlotte, kind of J-Ruler beats. But if you want something a little bit more chill, a little bit more fun, I definitely recommend this take. Let us know if you have a different idea for a 5 heroes build. We'd love to hear it or see it. And until next time, this is DMO73 saying class dismissed.